I never believed that silence could hold so much meaning, until that morning. The waves outside our beach house crashed softly against the shore, each one echoing the quiet turmoil inside me. My husband Daniel had just left for a weekend business trip to Los Angeles. He kissed my forehead like always, promised to call once he landed, and walked out with that confident smile I had fallen in love with years ago. I stood by the window, watching his car fade into the golden fog, unaware that the next 48 hours would alter everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and myself. The house felt too still after he left. The sound of the ocean, usually comforting, now pressed against the windows like a restless secret. I tried to distract myself, folded laundry, watered the plants, even played a soft playlist in the background. But there was an unfamiliar energy lingering in the air. It wasn't loneliness exactly. It was awareness. That awareness had a name: Liam, my stepson. Daniel's son from his first marriage. He'd returned home from college for a few days, citing a break from everything, though I sensed more behind those words. Liam was 22 now, mature in some ways, guarded in others. There was something quietly magnetic about him. The way his eyes lingered when I spoke. The way his laughter always felt half-contained, as if he were holding back thoughts he didn't want the world to see. When I walked into the kitchen, he was already there barefoot pouring coffee, sunlight spilling over his face. "Morning," he said with that easy smile. "Morning," I replied, my voice softer than intended. The conversation was ordinary, about the weather, his classes, Daniel's trip. Yet underneath, something unspoken pulsed, a tension neither of us invited, but neither could ignore. Later, as I stepped outside to shake the dust off the rug, I heard him behind me. "Need help?" he asked, taking it from my hands effortlessly. His fingers brushed mine, a fleeting touch, accidental yet electric. My breath caught, and for a moment I didn't move. I should have pulled back, made a light joke, something. But instead I froze, caught between sense and sensation. We both laughed it off, but the air between us shifted. It wasn't wrong, not yet, but it was fragile, dangerous in the quietest way. By evening, I tried convincing myself it was nothing. I cooked dinner, set the table, and turned on the soft yellow lights that always made our home glow. Liam joined me, sleeves rolled up, helping with dishes like he'd done 100 times before. But tonight his presence felt different, closer. "Dad's flight okay?" he asked casually. He texted, said he just landed. "That's good," he murmured, his eyes not leaving mine for a heartbeat too long. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was thick, filled with 1,000 words neither of us could say. Later that night, I stood on the balcony, watching the waves shimmer under the moonlight. I heard footsteps approach, quiet, hesitant. Liam joined me, standing just a few inches away. "It's beautiful here," he said. "It is," I whispered, though I wasn't looking at the sea anymore. The wind carried the faint scent of salt and pine, wrapping us in a stillness that felt both soothing and terrifying. When he spoke again, his voice was low, almost fragile. "You ever feel like some moments last longer than they should?" I turned to him, heart pounding. "What do you mean?" He smiled faintly. "Like time just slows down, right before everything changes." Something in his tone made my chest tighten. I wanted to say something sensible, something to break whatever invisible line we were standing on. But before I could, a gust of wind blew my hair across my face, and he reached out instinctively to tuck it behind my ear. His hand lingered just a second too long. My pulse quickened. I stepped back slightly, searching for words that wouldn't come. His expression softened, almost apologetic. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to—" "It's fine," I interrupted, though my voice betrayed me. The moonlight painted everything in silver. His face, the trembling edge of my hand, the distance that was suddenly too small to measure. That night, I lay awake, listening to the sound of waves colliding against the shore. Every echo seemed to whisper the same question. What am I doing? Just as sleep began to claim me, I heard a soft creak outside my door. My heart leapt, Footsteps, light and cautious, pausing near the hallway. I sat up, breath held. The house was silent again. But for the first time, I couldn't tell if the quiet comforted me or warned me. Morning came softly, the kind that slips in without asking permission. The house smelled of coffee and ocean air. I found myself pausing before stepping into the kitchen, unsure of what I expected or feared. Liam was already there again, headphones on, sketching something in his notebook. When he noticed me, he smiled, removing one earbud. "Did I wake you?" he asked. "No," I said, forcing calm into my tone. "I couldn't sleep much anyway." He nodded knowingly, and for a brief second, our eyes met. That silent understanding passing between us again, uninvited, but undeniable. I tried to keep busy. Cleaned the counters twice, rearranged the same vase of flowers, anything to drown out the hum of something quietly alive inside me. But the day stretched endlessly, sunlight spilling across the floorboards, daring me to confront what I already knew. I wasn't imagining it. By afternoon, Liam suggested we walk down to the beach. I agreed before my thoughts could catch up. The sand was cool beneath our feet, the wind gentle, carrying the scent of seaweed and salt. We talked about books, about life, about how lonely the world could feel even when surrounded by people. When he laughed, I saw the boy he used to be, and the man he was becoming. It frightened me, that duality, the way innocence and awareness could exist in the same glance. At one point, he stopped walking and looked out at the horizon. "You ever wish you could just start over?" he asked quietly. I hesitated. "Start over from what?" "From everything," he said, turning to me. "From all the choices that led you here." I looked away, pretending to study the waves, but his words hit deeper than I wanted to admit. There were parts of me that did wish for a reset, moments where love had become routine, where comfort replaced passion. But this, whatever this was, wasn't a solution. It was a storm. We walked home in silence. The air between us hummed, heavy with thoughts neither of us dared to voice. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood by the kitchen window. Liam entered quietly, sleeves rolled up, towel slung over his shoulder from a shower. My pulse quickened again. He opened the fridge, then paused, catching my reflection in the glass. "You look like you're somewhere else," he said softly. "Maybe I am," I replied, half smiling. He stepped closer. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why do you always look sad when you think no one's watching?" The question caught me off guard. My throat tightened. "I'm not sad. Just tired, maybe, from pretending," he asked, his voice low. The words lingered in the air like smoke. For a moment, everything around us went still. The ticking clock, the hum of the refrigerator, the world outside. I turned to face him, my chest rising and falling faster than it should have. "Liam," I whispered, a warning wrapped in longing. He took one step closer, his eyes searching mine. "I know," he said, his voice trembling. "I shouldn't feel this way. I could have stopped him. I should have, but instead, I stood frozen, caught in a gravity I didn't understand. When his hand reached for mine, I didn't pull away. The warmth of his skin sent a shiver through me. Not fear, but recognition. For a heartbeat, the world felt suspended. And then, he kissed me. It wasn't desperate. It wasn't wild. It was quiet, like a confession whispered to the night. My hands trembled as I pushed him away, my heart thundering. "This can't happen," I said, breathless. "You know that." He looked at me, guilt and ache flickering across his face. "I'm sorry. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't feel it." Before I could answer, the sound of tires crunching on gravel sliced through the air. My heart stopped. A car door slammed shut. Liam froze, eyes wide. "Is that—" "Yes," I whispered, panic rising. "Daniel's home early." The sound of keys jingled at the front door. My pulse raced as I grabbed the wine glass and hurried toward the counter, trying to look composed. Liam stepped back into the hallway, his expression a mix of fear and regret. The door opened, and Daniel's familiar voice filled the air. "Amelia? I'm home." I turned slowly, forcing a smile, every nerve in my body on fire. "You're early," I said, somehow steady. "Yeah, the conference ended sooner than expected." He kissed my cheek and set his suitcase down. "Everything okay?" Behind him I saw Liam standing in the hallway. Still, silent, eyes locked on mine for a single fleeting second before he turned away. I swallowed hard and smiled again. "Everything's fine," I whispered. But in my chest, I knew nothing would ever be fine again. For the next 2 days, the house felt different. Not visibly, everything looked the same. But underneath, there was a fragile tension that neither words nor smiles could disguise. Daniel's sudden return had thrown everything off balance, like a mirror cracked, but still hanging on the wall. Liam avoided me at first. I could feel his absence in the quiet spaces. The missing coffee mug on the counter, the empty chair by the window, the silence at breakfast. Daniel, oblivious, moved around us with his usual ease, talking about meetings, clients, plans. I nodded in all the right places, laughed when I had to, and kept my hands from trembling. Every sound, every glance, carried meaning now. When Liam finally appeared at the table one morning, our eyes met for a split second, long enough for my heart to skip. He looked tired, distant, but behind that calm exterior, I could still sense everything we weren't saying. After Daniel left for work, I stood by the sink, staring out at the ocean. I didn't hear Liam approach until he spoke. "You don't have to pretend around me," he said quietly. I turned, startled. "Pretend what?" "That everything's fine," he said. "It's not. You're not." His honesty hit me harder than I expected. I wanted to tell him that I was trying, that guilt was a heavy thing to carry, that I couldn't breathe without thinking about that kiss, that moment, that mistake. But all I managed was, "It was wrong." He nodded slowly, eyes lowered. "I know." "Then why does it still feel like it's here?" I whispered. The silence that followed was thick enough to drown in. He stepped closer, hesitant but sincere. "Because you felt it too," he said softly. My breath caught, and for a heartbeat, neither of us moved. The truth hung between us, undeniable, dangerous. Then I forced myself to step back. "We can't do this, Liam. We can't even talk about it. Your father," he interrupted gently. "My father doesn't see you. Not really." That sentence felt like a knife. Not because it was cruel, but because part of me feared it was true. Daniel loved me, yes, but over the years, something had dulled. We had become partners in routine, not passion. Still, that didn't justify what had happened. I met Liam's eyes and said, "You should go back to school soon." He nodded but didn't move. "I will," he said quietly. "But I need you to know something first." "What?" "That I never meant to hurt you. I just didn't expect to feel something this real." My throat tightened. "You're too young to know what real means." He gave a sad smile. "Maybe, but that doesn't make it less true." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he turned and walked out, slow, measured steps down the hallway. When the front door closed behind him, I exhaled a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. That afternoon, I tried to bury myself in chores, folded laundry, answered emails, cooked dinner early. Daniel came home later than usual, tired but cheerful, completely unaware of the storm inside me. He kissed my forehead and said, "You've been quiet lately. Everything okay?" "Just tired," I murmured, forcing a smile. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I got up, walked barefoot to the balcony, and stood there under the pale glow of the moon. The sea was calm now. waves brushing the shore like secrets they'd sworn to keep. Then I heard footsteps. My heart knew before my eyes did. Liam stood at the edge of the garden, looking up at me, still silent, conflicted. I hesitated, then walked down the steps to meet him halfway. "You shouldn't be here," I whispered. "I know," he said, "but I needed to see you once more." The wind stirred between us, cold and tender. His eyes searched mine, not for permission, but for closure. "I'm leaving tomorrow," he said softly. "Early morning. I thought, maybe we should end this right." "End this?" I repeated, my voice barely audible. He nodded. "The silence, the guilt, the looks we can't hide. You deserve peace, Amelia." My name on his lips felt like both a wound and a wish. I tried to smile, but my voice broke instead. "And what about you?" He hesitated. "Maybe peace comes later for me." He took a step forward, close enough for the warmth of him to reach me, but not enough to cross that invisible line again. "Can I hug you goodbye?" For a moment I couldn't answer. Then I nodded. He wrapped his arms around me, slow and deliberate, the kind of embrace that holds an entire conversation in silence. I felt his heartbeat against mine, steady yet trembling. When he finally let go, there was a strange calm between us, like the sea before dawn. He looked at me once more and whispered, "Take care of him. And yourself." Then he turned and walked away, fading into the dim morning light that was just beginning to rise. I stood there long after he was gone, the wind lifting my hair, the ocean whispering things I didn't dare understand. Inside, the clock struck midnight, and with it, the sound of finality, the kind that changes a person forever. The next morning came quietly, like a page turning without a sound. When I woke, the house felt emptier than usual. The air was still, the kind that carries absence like a scent. For a brief second, I thought I had dreamed everything. The kiss, the silence, the goodbye. But when I walked past the guest room and saw the neatly folded sheets, the truth settled deep in my chest. Liam was gone. His shoes by the door were missing, his mug washed and placed upside down on the drying rack. A note sat on the counter, short, careful, written in his neat handwriting. "Thank you for everything. Don't worry about me. You'll always mean more than words could ever explain." I read it once, then again, my vision blurring. I pressed the note to my chest and closed my eyes, letting the ache roll through me like a wave that refused to fade. When Daniel came down for breakfast, he noticed the silence first. "Where's Liam?" "He left early," I said softly. "Wanted to beat the traffic." Daniel smiled, completely unaware. That boy never rests, always chasing something. I nodded and forced a small laugh, though inside I was unraveling. Not in pain, but in a quiet, unbearable longing for what could never be. Over the next few days, life slowly returned to its ordinary rhythm. Daniel went back to work, the ocean kept singing its endless tune, and I found myself sitting on the porch each evening, watching the sun dip into the horizon. The world hadn't changed, but I had. Guilt was still there, yes, but alongside it lived something gentler. Gratitude, maybe. For the lesson. For the reminder that passion, no matter how forbidden, was proof that I could still feel deeply. That I was still alive. One afternoon, while tidying up, I found one of Liam's sketches tucked inside a drawer. It was the balcony view. The sea, the railings, and a small figure standing alone, hair blowing in the wind. Beneath it, he'd written only 3 words: "Some moments stay." I smiled through tears. Maybe that was what this all meant. That some moments weren't meant to last, only to remind us what it means to feel. That evening, Daniel joined me on the porch with 2 cups of tea. He looked tired but peaceful. "You've been quiet lately," he said gently. "Are you okay?" "I think so," I replied. "Just thinking about life." He chuckled. "Don't think too much. You'll miss the present." His words lingered. Maybe he was right. Maybe peace wasn't about forgetting. Maybe it was about learning to live alongside memory without letting it haunt you. We sat there in silence for a while, listening to the ocean. I glanced at him. This man who had given me safety, stability, a home. And though the spark between us had dimmed over time, I realized there was still something precious in what we shared. The quiet kind of love that endures even when passion fades. Later that night, when Daniel fell asleep beside me, I got up and stepped out onto the balcony one last time. The sea stretched endlessly before me, the moonlight dancing across the surface. I closed my eyes and let the wind brush against my face. In that moment, I didn't feel regret, only acceptance. What had happened between Liam and me existed in a space beyond right or wrong. It was a reminder that love, in all its forms, was both a gift and a test. Somewhere far away, maybe Liam was standing under a different sky, looking at the same moon, remembering too. I hoped he had found peace, or at least the strength to search for it. I whispered into the night, "Goodbye, Liam." The ocean carried my words away, swallowing them like secrets meant only for the waves. When I went back inside, I turned off the lights and stood for a moment by the window. The reflection staring back wasn't the same woman I'd been a week ago. She looked softer somehow. Sad, yes, but freer. Because sometimes the deepest kind of love isn't the one that stays. It's the one that teaches you to let go.